My name is Robbie Luckett. Today is Wednesday, November 17th, 2021. It's approximately 9:09 a.m. Central Time. I'm joined today by Tim Barber. Tim, for our record, will you state and spell your name for us?
My name is Timothy, Timothy, a middle initial, Barber, last name Barber.
Do I have your permission to record this interview?
Yes, you do.
Let's begin with some background info. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born, how you grew up, a little bit about your family, your educational background, those sorts of things.
I was born in Miami, Florida. I'm a Miami native. Lived in Miami all of my life outside of some very infant childhood moving that my mom did. I went to Arcola Lakes Elementary School, Horaceman Middle School in Miami Central, Senior High School. Was in a band, was excited about being in the band in high school. Also, I was very interested in computers and the breakdown and build back up of computers and programs and things of that nature. So after leaving high school, I ventured into getting my degree in electronic technology, which I worked for several years, one being with AT&T, the second one being with Motorola, actually for a couple of years at Motorola, and later working as a cables head-end tech, working the satellites for a few years. Kind of got a little bored with that and went back to school. That's when I went off to Florida A&M University. And the intent at the time was to get my law degree. So I came in as an English major. And after doing so, I decided to go and work on my master's, which I was kind of enthused by the history teachers at Florida A&M University, one being Dr. Larry Rivers, and Dr. Jackson, Dr. Titus Brown, and Dr. Hemingway. So, I went into history, received my history degree. And from there, I started to think about archiving. When I was working on my thesis, I was spending a lot of times in archives and never looked at it as being a profession until Dr. Eaton and Dr. Dawson, Elizabeth Dawson, connected me with the founder of the organization that I work for now, which is Dr. Dorothy Jennings Fields, as an intern. And I've been here since. So this has been one of those, just those turns on a highway that I've parked my car and kind of put the brakes on. So that's a little bit about me.
So a history major at FAMU. Tell us a little bit about your FAMU experience and, what it was like to be a history major there. I know a little bit about the fact that I know you were in the band.
Yes.
Tell us about your HBCU experience.
Wow, wouldn't trade it for the world. When I worked on my engineering degree, it was at a predominantly white institution. So coming from the inner city, going there was a different experience, but then coming from Miami and going to Florida A&M was phenomenal. It's just the most surprising thing about being at a HBCU was so many smart, and I'm gonna put it bluntly, Black people. You come from an inner city and, people are on your level, but when you go to a HBCU and you see so many smart individuals, from students to definitely the professors. I mean, the influence that the professors had on me at Florida A&M University was phenomenal. And I mean, one of my main reasons for going to Florida A&M because I wanted to be in a band. The band was the magnet, to be honest with you, in many cases, because you had a lot of universities out there, but, Florida A&M band is what really made me say, after working 3 years as an engineer, that's something I wanted to have in my belt. I wanted to go to the band right after high school, but my mother, God bless her soul, felt that either she felt I wasn't ready mentally enough, or she just didn't want me to move too far away from home. But the band is what attracted me to FAMU. And once I got there, my associations with professors, I mentioned Dr. Larry Rivers, he just blew me away because I could not understand how, again, I got to put it in context with my ideals at the time, that there was a Black guy that had so much information inside of his head about Black people, and the plight of African Americans in America. And just to hear him teach was mesmerizing for me, So history wasn't my thought initially. I was going for my English degree because I already did my research. You go get your English degree, which will help you when you get into LSAT, because there's a lot of reading and writing in law, and that was the plan. But I just, when you get there, I've heard people say that you change majors like you change girlfriends, sometimes in school. And I guess I was one of those that said, you know what, I want to do something in this history. I mean, it was phenomenal. I don't know. And ironically, I always kept everything. So it was in my blood to be an archivist at the time, because I kept everything from I still have Transformers and He-Mans in my closet right now from when I was a child, so I kept some of everything and pictures and things like that. So the experience at Florida A&M in the history department was ridiculous. I mean, every professor had their own unique niche, from Dr. Rivers to Dr. Titus Brown and his talks on Reconstruction and the Cotton Kingdom. You go to Hemingway, who really was well versed in the New Deal, and that realm of history. And Dr. Jackson, I mean, he was just phenomenal in his script of slavery and things of that nature. So, everyone had their niche, and you kind of pick and you learn a little from all of those professors. And then the one-on-one experience at the HBCU was phenomenal. It wasn't, like I said, I did engineering, and professors were like, okay, get the work done, boom, boom, boom. But at Florida A&M just was a different experience and relationships. And I can not even talk about the history professors, but the English professor, Dr. Beulah Hemingway, who I quote continuously as a teacher, professor now. The things that I've learned, Dr. Boston, in the English department. So it ranges, and you get a piece of all of that when you're going through life and education at a historically Black college and university.
And it led you to this internship. Tell us about that opportunity and wow, what that was like, what you were doing.
Yeah, you're digging now. So it was always interesting because the late Dr. Ted Hemingway constantly would ask me questions when he found out I was from Miami when I was working on my master's. Over and over, every day I walked in class, he would ask me to tell him something about Miami history. And every time I walked into class, I couldn't tell him anything. I didn't know much about Miami, Black history in Miami. He'll question me. Then he will accuse me and say, I'm not from Miami. He'll call me a transient, because I couldn't tell him anything about Miami history. So when I began to work on what my paper was going to be about, which was the New Deal in Roosevelt, FDR's New Deal, it led me to doing research on his effect on Miami. And as I began to go to the archives and met Professor Eaton and Dr. Dawson, they started this thing where, well, if you want to look in this collection, you got to process this collection, So I would go to the archives in order to look through some of the stacks that they had. I literally had to catalog those stacks in order to look through them. And I learned so much more. And as I was talking about to them about the archiving profession, they asked me about the Miami archiving. I was like, we don't have an archives in Miami. I told them, I was straight up, I was like, there's no archives in Miami. And they were like, wow, you never heard of Dorothy Jenkins Fields? I was like, no. Are you really from Miami? I was like, yeah. So they got on a phone call with Dr. Fields and told her that they have a student up here from Miami that said that there's no archives in Miami. And he was like, I think we're going to send him down there for an internship for a semester so he can learn more about his home city. And so that's what happened. They thought it would be interesting for me during the midst of my master's to do my internship in Miami. And it kind of worked out because, at the time my mom had just passed away in Miami, and I was taking care of my son and my little brother, who was 12 at the time. My little brother was 12, and I moved him to Tallahassee. So to come to Miami around family and work at the archives worked out. So I started the internship based on the knowledge that I was taught at training at Florida A&M by Professor Eaton and Dr. Dobson. And I came there. I was unaware. So as I began to go through the stacks and learn from Dr. Dorothy Fields, I just was blown away by the information that I did not know about Miami. Franklin Delaware's association in Miami with the creation of the what everybody knows as the pork and beans in Miami, but it was the Liberty Square housing project, which was the second federal housing project in the United States, built during that era of the New Deal. And the things that came out of the New Deal in Miami and his visiting there, I learned so much. His visiting Miami and the speeches that he made here, and even the attempted assassination and stuff like that. Here in Miami, it blew me away. And most importantly was the history that was right in front of my face, that nobody talked about in my high schools. Nobody talked about in my elementaries or my junior high school. And so that experience within itself, it was a semester long. I came in, rolled my sleeves up. I was, they saved the interesting, funny thing about that internship is Dr. Fields, they kept me away from the collections room, the vault, and until I came on board. And when I came on board, when I visited the first time, they kind of showed me all the good stuff. But when I came on board, they finally allowed me into the vault, and it was wall to wall of boxes, unprocessed collections in Miami. And they say, here you go, get at it. So I just started processing the information. And the sad thing about being an archivist and a historian, I did some work at Emory University in Georgia Archives, and the late Brenda Branks, it was interesting there. It's difficult when you're a historian and archivist. Archivists, I was alongside some other archivists, and they were just filing papers, writing, move, filing papers, writing, move. And I was, for some reason, when I get to a paper, I'm there like this. I'm reading the papers, and they looking at me, they're like, you're gonna be there all day. But as a historian, I wanted to learn what I was working on. And archivists, their whole job is to file these, preserve these, and make them available for researcher. But I was like a researcher in the middle of being an archivist. So that was an interesting internship. What I would never trade it in for the world, because from the internship came my job as the assistant archivist and the promotion now to where I am the executive director of the Black Archives History and Research Foundation of South Florida.
Well, let's talk about that process and what led you there. So you have this internship. At that point, was it still in your mind that you were going to go to law school, or was it the internship that changed all of that? And then when did the job offer come?
Well, what changed it, initially started that change was Dr. Titus Brown. I recall being in his office at Florida A&M University, trying to decide, what I was going to do after I received my degree in my English degree, because I was going to do PA, public administration, which the whole purpose was to segue, because I wasn't ready to go right into law school right out of my undergraduate at Florida A&M. So he made the suggestion. He was like, look, Barber, listen, why don't you pursue your history, your master's in history? Because if you don't go to law school, at least you can be a high school teacher, a college professor, of that nature, if you don't do the law school right away. And I was like, okay, I like history. I thought there was some very smart guys in the history department. So I decided to pursue the history degree. What ultimately changed my direction was the passing of my mother. That really changed the direction, changed my thought and what I needed to do, because once my mother passed away suddenly, it wasn't, it was all of a sudden, a phone call one morning. I had to grow up and I had to put my big boy pants on at that point. I had a little brother and a little sister who was in Miami, and lived with her. And so that really changed my course. I had to start thinking about what I can do now as a profession and possibly go back to law school later. So what Titus Brown said in stone, I'm a very religious person, and I think he was sent, by God to tell me, hey, work on your history degree, and that really, because she passed away in what was almost my last year working on my master's. So that opportunity to do the internship came out of me having to bring my little brother home so that he'll be around our family to help me raise him until he got older. And everything just fell together with that job. And what interesting, what led me to staying on at the archives was, when I was there, I could tell you the museum side version that I do when I do consultations, or I could tell you the lighter side. And the real side was that, I was offered the opportunity to be the assistant archivist. And for me, it was about money, and I had to take care of family. And so it's either become a school teacher at the time or be the assistant archivist. And, I knew what the school board was paying for new teachers. And I was trying to get that pay up, not thinking not-for-profit organization, because we are a not-for-profit organization. The monies didn't match up, but the connection that I had with Dr. Fields, my first time, I think my first week there, my first 2 weeks there, I was sitting in the mayor's office with Dr. Fields discussing Black affairs. And I'm sitting up there like, wow, I'm in the mayor's office, right out of college, in front of the mayor, listen to her talk to him about Black affairs. Then another thing was I was put in front of a camera that was a documentary that was being shot about the history of Black Miami, and she didn't take the interview. She sent me to the interview, and I'm sitting here as like, some of these things that I was experiencing as an internship, I don't think I could experience as a teacher. So I took a position, and I focused on the work, and that's what led me to where I am today. When I took a position, it stopped being about money and it started being about the work that I was doing. And I think what I tell many of my employees, that if you focus on the work, if you take care of the work will take care of you. And over the years, as I continue to take care of the work of the organization, I think the board of directors saw my zeal for the organization and the newness that I brought to it, that began to lead me to become, in my time of being there, by the time we got to the third director, because I was under 3 directors before I took over as the director, and it's been a wonderful whirlwind since then.
And when you became the executive director, did you come into that position from assistant archivist, or were there other steps along that path?
Well, yeah, there were other steps along that path. I came as an assistant archivist, and as I was just talking to my staff today, it was like 5 years. I started in 2004 as an official employee, and I became the executive director in 2009. And I moved from being the assistant archivist, to the archivist, because the organization was going through a transition at the time. When I first came to the archives, there were, roughly about 8 to 9 employees that were there. And as assistant archivist, I saw the employees started to leave. And I had no knowledge of why there was so much turnover happening with the organization. Later on, I found out it was money that was, leaving the organization. But I had no idea. So I became the archivist very quickly, because the archivist left. And left me in some stacks that I was unfamiliar with, So I immediately had to dive in and get some actual credible organization to the stacks, to get them in order as they should be, based on docs describing archival content descriptions. So I moved from being an archivist to being curator, because at the time I came in, we was a manuscript and photographic repository. There was no displays of any artifacts, but understanding coming from the Carnegie Library, the Florida A&M University archives, seeing that we were not only in a historic building there, we also displayed, and then there was the archives. I felt that the reason I didn't know that there was archives, because, some people look at scholarship, and then you have some people that look for three-dimensional objects. You have some people that learn from seeing history. So I wanted to make sure that people were able to see exactly what we had in our stack. So I began to develop exhibits that people could come see. And so that led me to the title of curator. I did some, I was introduced to AAAM through the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, and as well as the Schomburg in New York, working with Dobson at the time, who was the director there. And so, this is what I started to do. And then on the latter part of it in 2009, when the director then was about to part ways with the organization from the board of directors, to be honest with you, what I told the board of directors was, listen, I'm tired of missing paychecks, and if you're going to hire a new director, I want to put my name in the pool, because if I'm going to miss paychecks, I'm going to miss paychecks because of something I did wrong, not something someone else did. So that's really what I told the board of directors, and they took a week to talk about it, and then they came back and named me the executive director, and I've been doing it ever since. And I can truly say to you, Robbie, I say this sometimes to my founder, I said, when was the last time, because sometimes they don't agree with my means, and then I asked them straight up, when was the last time you had to write a check to bail out the organization? Not under my watch, and they can't disagree with that. So we've been blessed under being the director that, we've had no funding issues since I've been here. And I attribute that to my staff, as well as to my board of directors, who allow me to do what it is that I need to do in order to keep this organization running and functioning.
So in that work now, as the executive director of the Black Archives and Historic Lyric Theater, what is it that you actually do on a day-to-day basis?
Wow. If I was a stand-up, you'll see what I do on a day-to-day basis. Everything. I have not stopped what I've been doing since I was an intern, from archiving to cleaning bathrooms. The interesting thing about our organization, we initially, when I came on, we were at a county building, at an office space in the county building, not just northwest of where we are now. And the work had been done to extend to restore and expand the Historic Lyric Theater, which is on the National Register of Historic Places. I took over right when that construction started. And we've since, in 2014, opened this facility. It's 57,000 square feet of theater space, as well as exhibition space and office space. And, to be honest with you, I had to finish that project, physically as well, because it ran into some trouble and we had to get it off the ground. So what I do day to day is administration, as well as, like I said, from groundskeeping to cleaning bathrooms to repairing a water pipe that burst, because we're still a nonprofit organization. And the sad thing about doing this work in Black history is it's different because, and some people may get upset with what I say, but it's different because Black people sometimes don't care about their own history. They try to distance themselves from history and recreate the wheel, as opposed to learning from history and learning from the past. So, the support that we get is minimum from our own institutions. For example, I'll say this, we have a lot of Cuban-American influence down here in South Florida. And, if they say we want to do a Cuban museum, they're going to build that Cuban museum, and there's nobody from the Cuban-American people that will go start a second Cuban museum because they don't like the people in the first Cuban museum. you know. But for the Black Archives, we got people that instead of strengthening the one institution that's that supports the history of Black Miami, you got other people going out and creating their own archives for the sake of doing it because they think is nice for Black people. So you not only had the Black Archives, now we're going to start the Coconut Grove Archives on Black history. We're going to go start the South Dade Archives on Black history. So, you know, it kind of weakens a lot of times the structure of the voice of the people of color. You know, like I said, my saying is until the lions tell the story, the tales of the hunt will only glorify the hunter. So, you know, with that happening, I found myself doing a lot of things as the executive director. I found myself wearing a lot of hats from marketing to finance, you know, and things of that nature, because one, either you can't find people that are dedicated to do it, or two, you don't have the resources, financial resources that could attract those persons that could do that work for you. I was, you know, was approached by this organization trying to start a music museum. And they wanted me to, and I was trying to explain to them that right now I'm trying to get an exhibit done. I'm trying to work on an exhibit to open on December 1st. And they come to me and said, well, the Perez Museum will, you know, they said they can handle it. And I'm like, well, go to the Perez Museum because they have the resources. You know, that's a museum that's on Biscayne Bay. They have the resources to do it. Now, if you want me to do it, provide me with the resources where we can hire the staff that can help me help the rest of you guys do these different projects that you want to do. But people don't see it that way. You know, it's sort of, excuse me, it's sort of like is that's old saying that white is right in a sense, you know. So, you know, we're the Black Archives. The only other institution like us in Miami is History Museum. And people are running a history museum because that's the white museum, because they got it. But not knowing the reason they got it is because they have the resources and a team of people to do a lot of the legwork. So if I don't have the resources, I'm doing a lot of the legwork in order to make us sustain. So that's what I do day to day, everything.
Everything. I like that. in essence, everything.
Yes.
How has that work shifted over the last year and a half with COVID-19?
Well, interesting enough, you know, like I said, you know, one thing I've been good at, if you ever been poor in your life, I mean, really poor, you learn how to manage money very quickly. You know, if you've ever been down, and that's the gift and the curse to working for a Black not-for-profit organization. We know what it feels like not to have. When I took over as the executive director, the organization was in the red. And I'll say it was in the red, like $350,000, because it was the time in 2009 when the market began, the housing market was crashing, and the money was not there, and people were cutting back on grants. If people remember around that era, that's when the stimulus came out with Obama and stuff like that, to try to get America back operating. And like I said, when you're poor, you learn how to manage money. You know, you learn what to do and how not to do. So I've been fortunate to learn how to, as a squirrel would hide its nuts in the trees to get ready for the winter. That's something that I have been skillful at doing. When I would get a grant, the grant is for a year. You know, just because I get a penny, just because I get a penny, I don't spend a dime. You know, what I do is I try to make sure I keep coffers available for just in case, to at least be able to operate at least 6 to 8 months into the new fiscal year without struggling, you know, and leeway. So when COVID hit, we were in a great place. I had a great grant that was available to me to operate. And we in a sense, we really didn't feel it as an organization. I did not furlough or lay off any of our employees. Everybody worked from home. They did not miss a paycheck. I did not miss a paycheck. Matter of fact, we hired people during the pandemic, you know. So my story is not the same as other people's story, but I think it's attributed to the fact that I had been able to store up the funding and line up the right resources at the right time when this pandemic happened. Now, I don't know what's going to happen next year because, you know, and a lot of people don't realize it's not what's happening today that's going to affect a lot of our not-for-profit organizations. A year from now, we're going to start feeling the brunt of what happened during COVID. And so that's what I'm trying to prepare for now, with strategies and lining up resources that are needed in the coming years as a result of what happened during the pandemic.
A little bit of shift here in the theme. Tell us about your experience and history with the Association of African American Museums and your relationship to the organization.
Wow, listen, just like meeting Dr. Fields was you can't even attain a cost. Being introduced to the Association of African American Museums is immeasurable, because the things that I learned, and I can go back, like I said, to 2007, when I learned of the association, and and I started coming to the conferences. There's a lot that I learned sitting in the sessions from people that are working directly in the field. And I think I came at a great time. I came at a time that a lot of our pioneers and sages were still amongst us. Like you have John Franklin, and I want to start naming names, Dr. Piju, and all of these other people that were there, and they were boisterous while they were there, and that opportunity. And let me back up just a little bit. My first interaction came when I was a part of a leadership group that was selected for the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. And that's where I met Ahmad, who's in AAAM. And my name is just, the names are killing me right now, but the great people that were at the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute that began to talk to me about the archive. Earlier on, I did meet Howard Dobson, who was the director of the Schomburg and made several trips to the Schomburg and was learning under his tutelage and instruction, but I didn't learn about AAAM until 2007. And my first conference at AAAM, I was just like, I don't know, I was just enamored by the people that were there and the conversations that were being had. And I just began to soak everything up like a sponge, how to maintain archives, museums, how to garner relationships and partnerships, how to stretch your resources. Those key topics and things like that were going on was valuable to my success. And even now, being on the board of directors there, I mean, I'm still learning. I'm still soaking up. I kind of sit quietly when I'm around you guys, Robbie, a lot of times, because, not that I'm antisocial, which I think I am a little bit, but more so I've learned that I can learn more by listening than talking. And recording what people are saying, what they're experiencing, and do a transfer of learning, transfer what happened at your institution. When I go to these institutions, and I've been fortunate enough to visit a lot of institutions, I'm looking at not only, and by opening our institution in 2014 here, I'm not looking at just the surface, I'm looking at the cracks and the crevices. That opportunity to talk with directors and what they're doing. And AAAM has afforded me that opportunity to reach out, to learn and share experiences. So, this I can't explain how valuable AAAM has been to my career and the success of our organization here in Miami.
You're also playing a role in bringing AAAM to Miami. I wonder if you wouldn't mind speaking about what that experience is like.
Well, we've been in this experience for like 3 years. This is the longest conference planning. Honestly, Robbie, I was like, man, please just fly over us and then come back again. But I'm so excited that the people in the association still want to come to Miami. So we've been planning this since like 2018, 2019, and here we are 2021 still planning for AAAM to come. But I thought it was very important because and more so not for the body of AAAM, but it's more so for the other institutions here in Miami to learn that there is an association out there that will help you. Because they ask me so many questions. Many people ask me, Tim, how did you do what you did? And so being able to bring AAAM to Miami so I can educate the people of Miami on what this thing is all about. Because one thing in Miami, everybody wants to open up a museum. Everybody wants to open up archives, but they don't understand the legwork to get it there or what to do to get it there. Bringing AAAM here will let the people of Miami that don't go to AAAM, that want to open up these facilities, get rub shoulders with people that have done the work. And the thing about all of this is there's nothing new under the sun. You don't have to recreate the wheel, because guaranteed there's somebody in the association has done everything that you're trying to do. So plug into the association, Miami, and learn from the people that are coming to Miami. So just like I was enamored by the smartness of all these people when I went to Florida A&M, again, I was blown away by all of the intellect that you guys have in AAAM, that I'm just sitting, I'm pilfering off of it, just writing this information down and following this book that's been laid out before me. So that's why it's very important, that not just that AAAM can come to Miami, but for people in Miami can see, the government can see, because a lot of times I hear people say, man, if the Lyric Theater was in any other city, it would be supported. I get that all the time when I talk to people about what I do and what I've been able to do and here in Miami. And then they learn that the resources that we have are very limited. Many people think that we have unlimited resources. So what I want the people to see, I'm taking something off my screen. What I want people to see here in Miami, that the Black Archives is respected nationally. So we're respected nationally. It's like a prophet is not, heard in his own town. We want Miami to realize of our importance in this block of history and museum studies and archiving, and the way that we're respected nationally. We should be respected at home to help, support our resources.
You've talked a lot about the people in Miami and FAMU who impact you, Dr. Dorothy Jenkins Fields, and you have mentioned a couple of people in AAAM. Who are the folks that have most influenced you in the Black Museum field?
Oh, I've been naming them. Starting with Howard Dobson there at the Schomburg. And it's his information that gave me the idea, because what I was finding in Miami is that because we had the Lyric Theater, which was a building built in 1913 on National Register of Historic Places, that was in the Mecca of Miami, the Black Archives actually physically was about 5 miles away from it in Brownsville at a community building. So it was Dobson who visited here and came in to give me some consultancy on how to operate. And it wasn't when I was a director. I wasn't the director, and I was the archivist. We were working with them. They were doing the In Motion exhibit that was at the Schomburg. I was working with them to bring a version of that exhibit to the Lyric Theater. And we were able to have a sit down. Like I said, he was here. And they flew me to New Harlem, and I spent time up there. And when we would have our one-on-one sessions talking about how to move this organization forward, one thing he told me was, I got to find a way. Everybody seemed to be, when he came to Miami, everybody's excited about the Lyric Theater, but they were not excited about the archives. And the archives is the scholarship. The Lyric Theater is the building. And he was like, and I would talk to him about people want to do stuff at the theater, but they don't want to support the archives, not realizing is the archives is what saved the Lyric Theater. And so what he told me is that, Tim, you have to find a way to get the archives under the same roof as the Lyric Theater. So if they're giving to the Lyric Theater, in a sense, they're also giving to the archives. And that was the support, that one support. But beyond that, seeing Ahmad, and my mind is just drawn a blank for Patricia. My mind just drew a blank. But of course, Patricia, Dr. Man, you're trying to get me to say names, and my mind is like stretched very thin. Of course, bringing in, her name is eluding me right now. But there was a number of people. I'm saying I just gotta stop because my mind in terms of names is getting short. As I get older, my memory is not as strong. But there's been a number of people in the AAAM that has really supported what it is that we're doing down here and what we have done. And once the name come to me, I'll tell you. But right now, it's just not there right now.
Don't worry, I know how that goes. I'm sure it will hit you like 10 minutes after we finish.
Yeah, right.
This interview. So more broadly,
Debra Mack, Dr. Debra Mack. I just, and that's the thing. Dr. Debra Mack, man, I can't not say, and she probably would like, how you not remember my name? Dr. Debra Mack has been phenomenal in my career from AAAM. You know, learning from her and being included with Dr. Mack. I just can't give enough flowers to her for the knowledge that she have shared over my years at AAAM. And the interesting thing about AAAM, and I was sharing with Ahmad, you know, when we came in AAAM, we were like the kids. We were the young generation. We were the ones that wanted to go out after the sessions and go hang out and party and stuff. And at the last two conferences, me and Ahmad looked at each other like, we're now the old people, you know? And truthfully speaking, learning from my colleagues have been so influential. You know, Dr. Mack, Debra Mack, Chris, you know, watching, and I got it, Sam Black. Sam Black has been phenomenal. I would bounce things off of Sam Black at the Heinz Museum, former president. He's actually the son-in-law of Dr. Dorothy Jenkins Fields, our founder, and being able to bounce things off of Sam has been critical in my success. You know, a lot of times I would call Sam or email Sam before I mention anything to Dr. Fields, because if I know I have Sam on my side, I'll be able to get our founder on our side as well. So, you know, those are some of the names. I just hate naming names, but I do want to give people the flowers that they well deserve out of AAAM to have supported.
Well, you won't be shocked to know that Debra Mack's name comes up with almost everybody.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've talked to. So what's your vision for the future of this field?
Oh, man, this field, I see it growing. Over the past couple of years at AAAM, the conferences, I've seen the emergence of the young professionals. When we were there, we were very limited. It wasn't a lot, but the group of Black professionals in this field is beginning to grow. I always talk about, I was a part of the connecting collections with, was it with Society of American Archivists, or IMLS? We used to do this connecting collections, and I remember going to Buffalo it was similar around the time Katrina, flying out to Buffalo and with these conservationists and talking about conservation techniques for collections. And when we took the group photo, there were two Black faces in that photo, and I still had a photo, and that was myself and Altamise Barnes. You know, and now when you talk about professionals in this field, you're seeing more and more young people of color coming into the field. What it is, my desire is that people will respect this field in terms of history, because the late Reverend Dr. Laurie said at one of the AAA meetings, he said that if you don't know where you come from, you'll never know when they're trying to take you back. And that's just saying that you can learn from history. You can learn what to do in the future from history. And this profession of historians and museums that document this stuff is valuable to the American fabric. And if America begin to understand that, the grants will increase. They will get rid of these matchings for these institutions, that it makes it easier for institutions such as ours that sometimes struggling just to move forward. You know, a lot of these institutions were birthed in the 1970s during a Black Power movement, you know, and you know, because collecting Black history wasn't cool back then, you know. I'm in this exhibit that we're doing now, I'm reading news articles from Dr. Fields where she was writing saying white Miami does not care about Black history, because white Miami is saying that there's no Black history in the Overtown community. There's no buildings that need to be saved. There's nothing historic in Overtown. This was what was being said in the 70s. So these pioneers that started this movement in this terms of this field, becoming archivists, becoming opening community museums and things of that nature, documenting this history was very valuable and important to us. So we hope that the people today to see what they saw back in the 1970s and give, so that the key thing is resources and capacity. But you can't build capacity if you don't have the resources. So it's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? So I hope that in 20 years, there will be a growing number of people that have interest in this field, that there will be line items and not grants, line items in federal budgets, line items in county budgets, line items in state budgets and city budgets that help support institutions like ours.
All right, last question. You mentioned that vision and the people coming to the field and the line items. For those people who want to enter this work, what are your recommendations for them? What would you tell my students who are listening to these oral histories, others who are coming to this, who are interested in joining in AAAM and the Black Museum field and the type of work that we do?
Well, I would tell them to have strong skin, and it's like a relationship, right? A lot of times relationship fails not because we grow apart, but because we don't remember what it was that brought us together. And when you come into this field, that's the zeal that you have to have. You have to approach it like a ferocious lion. Like, you can't give up, and like I said earlier, if you take care of the job will take care of you. That is my belief. And when you come into the field, all of the glory is not going to happen at the beginning, but you got to keep working. You got to keep working. You got to keep at it, because what you're doing is very important to the sustainability of this thing. And it's not what people say about you today, it's what people say about you 20 years from now, 30 years, 40 years from now, that will make the difference. Is what your children will say about you and the work that you're doing. So you got to have thick skin. You got to prepare yourself to go the long haul, because there's nothing instant. I know we like instant hot dogs. We throw it in the microwave. Some people even put eggs in a microwave to cook it to go faster. But, in this field, it's not an instant society. It's a large voice, and you keep voicing your concerns. You keep doing the work, and things will begin to work out for you.
Tim Barber, I appreciate you very much. Thanks for your time. This has been great.
Thank you so much, man. I enjoy it, Robbie. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to the next work that you'll be doing.
Same here.